What if I told you that death, as you understand it, might be the greatest illusion your mind has ever created? What if the very concept of ending contradicts everything we know about the universe? And what if I, Albert Einstein, spent my final years wrestling with a truth about mortality that would either comfort you completely or unsettle you forever? Stay with me, because what I'm about to share challenges everything you've been taught about life, death, and what lies beyond. My name is Albert Einstein. You know me from my wild hair, my equations, my tongue sticking out in that famous photograph. You know me for relativity, for changing how humanity understands space and time. But what you don't know is what I discovered about death, what I came to understand in my final years, what I wrote in letters to grieving friends but never published for the world. Today, I'm going to tell you what really happens when you die, and I promise you, it's not what you think. But before I explain the physics of death, I need to tell you about the moment that changed everything for me. The moment I realized that our fear of death is based on a fundamental misunderstanding of reality itself. Let me start with something that haunted me throughout my life: time. You see, I revolutionized how the world understands time with my theories of relativity. I showed that time is not absolute, that it bends and stretches, that clocks tick at different rates depending on velocity and gravity, that simultaneous events in one reference frame aren't simultaneous in another. This wasn't philosophy. This was mathematics, proven physics, experimental fact. But here's what kept me awake at night. If time is relative, if it's not some universal river flowing in one direction for everyone everywhere, then what does that mean for death? What does it mean to end if time itself doesn't work the way we think it does? Let me be direct with you. Most people think of death as a moment, a specific point where you cross from being to non-being, from existence to nothingness. Your heart stops, your brain ceases activity, and you're gone, erased from the universe. But this view assumes something fundamental. It assumes that time flows forward uniformly, that past, present, and future are distinct and separate, that there's a clear division between now you exist and now you don't. And I'm telling you, based on everything I learned about the universe, that assumption is wrong, completely wrong. Here's what my equation showed me. The universe doesn't have a single now that everyone shares. There is no universal present moment. Instead, all of space and time forms what we call a four-dimensional continuum, spacetime. And in this continuum, past, present, and future all exist simultaneously. They're all equally real. Think about this carefully. When you look at a mountain in the distance, you don't say the mountain doesn't exist just because you're not standing on it. It's over there, spatially separated from you, but still real, still existing. Now apply that same logic to time. Your birth exists. It's not gone. It's simply located at different coordinates in time than where you are now. And your death? It exists too. Not as a moment where you cease to be, but as a location in space-time, a set of coordinates, just like your birth, just like this present moment you're experiencing right now. This is what I call the block universe, and it changes everything about death. In the block universe, your entire life, from birth to death, exists as a complete object, a four-dimensional structure stretched across time. You don't move through time like a boat moving down a river. Instead, all moments of your existence are laid out. They all exist simultaneously. Your consciousness right now is simply experiencing one particular slice of that four-dimensional structure, one moment. But all the other moments are equally real, equally existent. You at age 5 playing in the yard, that version of you exists. You at age 20 falling in love, that version exists. You at age 70 taking your last breath, that version exists too. None of them are more or less real than the you who is listening to these words right now. So what does this mean for death? It means that death is not an ending, it's a boundary, the edge of your four-dimensional structure in one direction of time, just as your birth is the boundary in the other direction. But boundaries don't mean the thing stops existing. A painting has edges, but the painting itself doesn't cease to be just because it doesn't extend infinitely in all directions. You exist as a complete entity in space-time. Birth and death are simply the endpoints. And everything between them, every moment you've ever experienced or will experience, all of it exists permanently in the structure of space-time. You cannot be erased. The universe doesn't have a delete button. What has existed always exists, just at different temporal coordinates. Now I know what you're thinking. This sounds abstract, theoretical. How does this help me when I'm afraid of dying, when I'm facing the loss of someone I love? Let me tell you about a letter I wrote. It was March 1955, just weeks before my own death. My lifelong friend Michel Besso had died. We had known each other since our university days. We had worked together, dreamed together, argued about physics for decades, and now he was gone. His sister wrote to me grieving, and I wrote back. What I told her has since become somewhat famous, but most people don't truly understand what I meant. I wrote this: "Now he has departed from this strange world a little ahead of me. That means nothing. People like us, who believe in physics, know that the distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion." Think about those words. The distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion. I wasn't being poetic. I wasn't trying to make her feel better with empty platitudes. I was telling her the literal truth as I understood it from physics. Mikhail hadn't gone anywhere. He hadn't ceased to exist. He was simply located at a different point in the space-time continuum than I was. The part of space-time that contained his death was just as real as the part that contained his life. All of it existed. All of it was permanent. The feeling that he was gone was an illusion created by my consciousness experiencing time moment by moment, creating the false impression that only now is real. But physics tells us otherwise. Mikhail existed. Mikhail exists. In the four-dimensional structure of reality, his entire life is laid out, permanent, unchangeable, eternal in its own way. And the same will be true for me. The same is true for you. But here's where it gets even stranger. And this is something I struggled with until my final days. If all moments exist simultaneously, then what exactly is consciousness? What is this feeling we have of moving through time, of experiencing one moment after another? Let me share something I never published, something I wrote in my private notebooks in the 1930s and 40s. I became obsessed with understanding consciousness and its relationship to time. Because here's the paradox. Physics tells us all moments exist simultaneously, but our experience is that we move through time. We remember the past, we experience the present, we anticipate the future. Why? If the block universe is real, why do we have this illusion of flow? Why does consciousness seem to travel through time? I filled notebooks with these questions. I had no complete answer, but I developed some ideas, some possibilities, and they relate directly to what happens when you die. Here's one possibility I considered. Consciousness might be like a light moving along a film strip. The entire film exists. All frames are there simultaneously. But the light illuminates one frame at a time, creating the experience of motion, of sequence, of narrative. Your consciousness is that light, moving along your four-dimensional structure in space-time, illuminating one moment, then the next, creating the experience of time flowing. But the film itself, the complete structure of your existence, it's all there, all at once. So when you die, when your consciousness reaches the final frame, what happens? Does the light simply stop, or does something else occur? I wrestled with this constantly, and I'll be honest with you, I never found a definitive answer. How could I? I was still alive. I hadn't experienced death yet. But I did reach some conclusions that gave me peace. Let me share them with you. First, I became certain that the subjective experience of time is fundamentally different from time as it exists in physics. Physics describes a static four-dimensional block. Consciousness creates the dynamic experience of flowing through that block. These are two different things, and understanding the difference is crucial. When people fear death, they fear the loss of experience, the loss of consciousness, the loss of that flowing, dynamic sense of being alive. And I understand that fear. I felt it too. But here's what I realized.
The fear is based on a misunderstanding. We imagine death as falling into an infinite void of nothingness, an eternity of non-experience. But that's not what physics suggests happens. Think about it. If your consciousness is the experience of moments, and all moments of your life exist permanently in space-time, then those experiences don't go away. They remain. The moment you're experiencing right now, this will always exist. You will always be experiencing this moment, in a sense, because it's part of the permanent structure of space-time. You that exists at this moment will always exist at this moment. Now here's where it becomes difficult to express in words. From inside your experience, you move from moment to moment. You experience sequence. But from outside, from the perspective of the block universe, all your moments exist simultaneously. You at
every age, experiencing every moment of your life, all at once. Not in time, but as a complete structure outside of time. So what happens when you reach the boundary called death? Your consciousness reaches the final frame, the last moment. And then? Here's what I believe, and I emphasize believe because this moves beyond what physics can definitively prove. I believe that the question, what happens next, is itself based on a misunderstanding. Because next implies time, and death is the boundary of your existence in time. There is no next after death any more than there's a next after the edge of a painting. The question doesn't make sense. But this doesn't mean you cease to exist. It means your complete existence, your entire life, from birth to death, exists as a permanent structure, a four-dimensional object in space-time. And the consciousness you have, the experiences you have, they're all part of that structure. They don't disappear. They can't disappear. The universe doesn't erase information. This is actually a principle in physics. Information is conserved. What exists continues to exist in some form. Let me tell you about a conversation I had in my final year. A young physicist visited me at my home in Princeton. Bright young man, full of questions. He asked me directly, "Professor Einstein, are you afraid of dying?" I looked at him for a long moment. I was 76 years old. I had severe heart problems. I knew I didn't have much time left, and I told him this: fear of death is fear of change, fear of the unknown. But I know something about the universe now that I didn't know when I was young. The universe doesn't create things temporarily. When something exists, it becomes part of the permanent fabric of reality. I have existed. That fact is eternal. My life has happened. That is now an unchangeable part of the universe's structure. So no, I'm not afraid. I'm curious, but not afraid. The young man looked confused. He pressed me. "But Professor, surely you'll cease to exist. Your consciousness will end. How can you not fear that?" And I smiled. I remember smiling, because I realized he was still thinking in terms of time flowing, of existence as a temporary state that could be lost. And I said, "My friend, you think of consciousness as a candle flame that can be blown out. But what if consciousness is more like a color in a painting? The painting exists. The color is part of the painting. You can't blow out a color. It's there. It's part of the structure. My consciousness is not a flame burning in time. It's a pattern in the structure of space-time. The pattern exists. It will always exist because space-time itself exists." I saw his mind working, trying to grasp it, and I added something that I had never told anyone before. "Besides," I said, "I have a suspicion. Call it an intuition. I suspect that consciousness is more fundamental than we realize, that it's not just an accident of biology, that it's somehow woven into the fabric of reality itself. And if that's true, then death might not be the ending of consciousness. It might be a transformation, a change in form,
but not an ending. He asked me what I meant, and I told him I didn't fully know, that I was speculating beyond what physics could prove, but that I had spent 50 years studying the universe, and the universe kept surprising me with how strange and wonderful it was. And I suspected that the relationship between consciousness and reality was stranger and more wonderful than anything I had yet discovered. But here's what I want you to understand. Whether consciousness continues in some form after death, or whether it simply exists eternally as part of your four-dimensional structure in space-time, either way, you are not erased. You are not lost. You are permanent. Now let me address something important: religion. Many people have asked me about God, about afterlife, about religious ideas of heaven and hell. Let me be clear about my position. I don't believe in a personal God. I don't believe in an old man in the sky judging us and sorting us into eternal destinations. I find those ideas childish, wishful thinking, remnants of our primitive need for a parent figure watching over us. But, and this is crucial, just because I reject traditional religious concepts doesn't mean the universe is cold and meaningless. Quite the opposite. The more I learned about the universe through physics, the more I felt what I call cosmic religious feeling, a sense of profound wonder, a recognition that reality itself is far stranger and more magnificent than any story humans have invented. When I look at the night sky, when I contemplate the mathematics that govern everything from atoms to galaxies, when I think about the nature of space and time, I feel something that I can only describe as spiritual. Not religious in the traditional sense, but spiritual. A connection to something vast and beautiful and mysterious. And death is part of that mystery. Not the end, but a boundary, a transformation, a return to the fundamental fabric of reality from which we temporarily emerged as individual conscious entities. Do I know exactly what that means? No. Do I have equations that describe consciousness after death? No. But I have intuition, based on a lifetime of studying how the universe works. And my intuition tells me that the universe doesn't create consciousness accidentally and temporarily, that we're not just biological machines that happen to be aware for a brief flash before permanent darkness. I believe, though I cannot prove, that consciousness is fundamental, that it's as basic to reality as space, time, energy, and matter. And if that's true, then consciousness doesn't end at death. It transforms, it changes form, but it continues in some way. Now you might ask, why didn't I publish these ideas? Why didn't I develop them into a formal theory? And the answer is simple: because I couldn't. I didn't have the tools. I didn't have the mathematics. I didn't have a way to test these ideas experimentally. Science requires evidence, and consciousness is notoriously difficult to study scientifically. It's subjective, internal. How do you measure it? How do you experiment with it? I could speculate, I could have intuitions, but I couldn't do science on it. So I kept these thoughts private, in letters to friends, in personal notebooks, in conversations late at night with colleagues who wouldn't mock me for wondering about such things. But now, at the end of my life, I'm sharing them with you because I think they matter, because I think the fear of death causes enormous suffering. And if my understanding of physics can offer any comfort, any different perspective on mortality, then it's worth sharing, even if I can't prove it, even if it's more philosophy than science.
Let me tell you what happened in my final weeks. It was April 1955. My abdominal aortic aneurysm ruptured. I was taken to the hospital. The doctors wanted to operate, to try to extend my life, and I refused. I told them, I want to go when I want. It is tasteless to prolong life artificially. I have done my share. It is time to go. I will do it elegantly. Can you imagine facing death and calling it an opportunity to do something elegantly? But that's how I felt. I wasn't running from death. I was accepting it, welcoming it even, curious about it. In those final days, I requested my latest equations, my work on the unified field theory. Because I wanted to work until the end, not because I was avoiding thoughts of death, but because working on understanding the universe was how I engaged with life. And if life was ending, then I wanted to engage with it fully until the last possible moment. My secretary later told people that I was calm, at peace. And I was. Because I had spent decades thinking about time and existence and reality. And I had come to understand something profound, that existence itself is the miracle, not its duration, not how long you live, but the fact that you exist at all, that the universe arranged itself in such a way that consciousness could emerge, that you could be here, aware, experiencing reality. That fact is astonishing. And it doesn't become less astonishing just because it has a beginning and an end in time. Think about a beautiful piece of music. Does it become less beautiful because it ends? Does the fact that the final note will eventually play diminish the magnificence of the symphony? Of course not. The music exists as a complete work. And in a sense, the music exists eternally once it's been composed. Someone can play it again. It exists as a pattern of information, as a structure. The same is true for your life. Your life is like a symphony in time. And when it ends, the symphony doesn't cease to exist. It exists as a complete work, as a pattern in the fabric of space-time, as information in the structure of reality. You are a symphony that has been played, and that fact is eternal. But I want to be honest with you about something. There were moments of doubt, moments of fear. I'm human. Despite all my understanding of physics, despite all my philosophical reasoning, there were nights when I lay awake and felt the cold touch of fear. What if I'm wrong? What if death really is just oblivion? What if consciousness really does just end, and there's nothing, and I'll never know anything again? These thoughts came. I won't pretend I was some perfectly rational being who never felt fear. But here's what I did with those thoughts. I examined them. I asked myself, what exactly am I afraid of? And I realized something interesting. I was afraid of the experience of nothingness, of being in a void, of eternal boredom, of missing out, of loss. But then I realized these fears don't make logical sense. If consciousness ends, there's no one to experience nothingness. There's no one to be bored. There's no one to miss anything. The fear was about experiencing something, but the thing I feared was the absence of experience. It was logically incoherent. The only way to fear death rationally is if death is an experience. But if death is the end of experience, then there's nothing to fear, because there's no you to experience the bad thing you're worried about. This realization helped me enormously. I saw that my fear of death was actually fear of a logical impossibility. I was afraid of experiencing non-experience, which is like being afraid of seeing darkness with your eyes closed. The fear itself was based on a conceptual confusion. And
Once I saw that confusion clearly, the fear largely dissolved. What remained was not fear, but curiosity, wonder. What is death actually like? What's the experience of that boundary? I'll tell you something else that gave me peace. The understanding that I had lived, that I had experienced consciousness, that I had loved, that I had learned, that I had contributed something to human knowledge. These facts are eternal. The universe now contains the fact that Albert Einstein existed, thought about relativity, loved music, played violin, wondered about space and time. That information is part of reality now. It cannot be erased. Even if every human forgot me, even if every book I wrote turned to dust, the fact that these events happened is woven into the causal structure of the universe. The future was shaped by my existence. Billions of events that happened after I lived were different because I lived. That chain of causation extends forward forever. In that sense, I continue to affect the universe even after my death. My life ripples out into the future eternally, and so does yours. Every choice you make, every person you interact with, every moment you experience, it all becomes part of the causal fabric of reality. You shape the future by existing in the present, and that shaping continues even after you die. Your influence, your effects, the changes you made to the world, they propagate forward. They touch other lives. Those lives touch others, and on and on. In this way, no one is truly lost. We're all interconnected, all part of one vast causal web. And removing any one strand affects the entire web. You matter. Your life matters, not because it lasts forever, but because it exists at all, because it's part of the whole. Let me share something I wrote in my final notebook. I was trying to express this idea, this feeling I had about consciousness and death and meaning. I wrote, "A human being is part of the whole called by us universe, a part limited in time and space. We experience ourselves, our thoughts and feelings, as something separate from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole nature in its beauty." Do you see what I was saying? The feeling of being separate, of being an isolated individual who will someday cease to exist. This is an illusion, a delusion created by the limitations of our consciousness. In reality, you're not separate from the universe. You're a temporary pattern within the universe, a way the universe has organized itself for a brief time. And when you die, the pattern changes, but the universe continues, and you were always part of the universe. You still are part of the universe. The boundary between you and everything else is not as solid as it seems. This sounds mystical, but it's based on physics. You're made of atoms that were forged in stars. Those atoms will continue to exist after you die. They'll become part of other things, other beings perhaps. The energy that animates your body, that comes from food, from the sun, from the fundamental energy of the universe, that energy doesn't disappear. It transforms. Conservation of energy. First law of thermodynamics.
Energy cannot be created or destroyed, only changed in form. So what are you really? You're a temporary arrangement of matter and energy, animated by consciousness. And when you die, the matter returns to the earth, the energy disperses, and the consciousness, that remains the mystery. But here's what I think. I think consciousness is the universe becoming aware of itself.
I think consciousness is the universe becoming aware of itself. In you, right now, the universe is experiencing itself, thinking about itself, wondering about itself. And that's magnificent. That's profound. That's the deepest meaning I've found in existence. You are the universe, conscious, for a brief time. And when your particular instance of consciousness ends, the universe continues to be conscious through others, through the billions of other conscious beings. The whole is greater than the parts, and the whole continues. This was my final understanding. This was what gave me peace as I approached death. Not belief in an afterlife where I would continue as Albert Einstein, playing violin on a cloud somewhere, but the understanding that I was never really Albert Einstein in the way I thought I was. I was always the universe, temporarily experiencing itself as Albert Einstein. And when Albert Einstein died, the universe would continue to experience itself in countless other ways. I was a wave in the ocean, thinking I was separate from the ocean. But I was always made of water, always part of the whole. And when the wave crashes on the shore, the water doesn't disappear. It returns to the ocean. It becomes part of new waves. The form changes, but the essence continues. That's death, a change in form, a return to the source. Not an ending, but a transformation. Now I want to address something practical. How should this understanding change how you live? Because that's what really matters, isn't it? Not just abstract ideas about death, but how those ideas affect your life right now. And here's what I learned. Understanding the nature of time and death freed me. It freed me from the desperate need to achieve everything immediately, from the fear that I was running out of time, from the anxiety that I might not matter. I realized that my existence had inherent meaning simply by existing, that I was part of something vast and beautiful, and that gave me permission to relax, to enjoy the process, to pursue understanding for its own sake, not because I needed to accomplish something before I died. It also changed how I related to others. If we're all temporary patterns in the universe, all equally real in our existence, all equally finite, then we're all in this together. We're all facing the same mystery, the same transformation. That creates compassion, humility, a recognition that no one has truly figured it all out, that we're all just conscious beings trying to make sense of our brief moment of awareness. This perspective made me less judgmental, more patient, more willing to help others, because I saw that we're not really separate. We're all expressions of the same underlying reality. Helping you is helping myself. Hurting you is hurting myself. Not metaphorically, literally. We're made of the same stuff, animated by the same energy, connected by the same space-time. It also made me more appreciative. Every moment became precious, not because I was running out of moments, but because each moment is a miracle. The fact that I could see, think, feel, understand, this was astonishing. I tried never to take it for granted. Even in my final days, in pain, unable to work as I once had, I still felt grateful. Grateful for consciousness, for experience, for having been part of this strange and wonderful universe. And it made me less afraid, less anxious, less desperate, because I understood that nothing could truly be lost, that existence itself was the victory, that I didn't need to prove anything or achieve anything to justify my life. My life justified itself simply by being,
simply by adding to the rich tapestry of experience that the universe has created. So my advice to you, facing your own mortality, is this. Stop thinking of death as the opposite of life. Death is part of life. It's the boundary, the final chapter, but not the negation of all the chapters that came before. Your life is already meaningful, already complete in each moment. You don't need to wait until you've achieved some goal or reached some milestone. You're already part of the eternal structure of space-time. You're already contributing to the universe simply by being conscious, by experiencing, by existing. Live with that awareness. Let it free you from the prison of anxiety, from the delusion that you're separate and finite and insignificant. You're infinite in your connection to everything. You're eternal in your existence as a four-dimensional structure. You're significant simply because you are.
Let me tell you about my last coherent day. April 17th, 1955. The doctors had given me painkillers, but I was still lucid for part of the day. My son, Hans Albert, was there, some close friends, and I remember feeling this overwhelming sense of completeness, of satisfaction. Not because I had finished my work. I hadn't. The unified field theory was still unsolved. There were still so many questions. But I felt complete because I had engaged fully with the mystery. I had devoted my life to understanding. And that devotion itself was the point, not the final answers. The devotion, the curiosity, the wonder. I looked out the window at the trees. It was spring, new leaves, green, beautiful. And I thought about how those trees were made of the same atoms I was made of. How we were both temporary structures in space-time. How in 100 years, those particular trees would be gone, and I would be gone. But other trees would be there, and other conscious beings would look at them. The pattern continues. The dance goes on. And I felt peaceful, not resigned, not sad, but peaceful, accepting, curious about what came next, or what didn't come next. Either way, it was okay. I had existed. I had been conscious. I had experienced reality. And that fact is eternal. That fact cannot be taken from you. That fact is your immortality. So live without fear, die without fear. You're part of something vast and eternal and beautiful. You're the universe experiencing itself. And when your particular experience ends, the universe continues, still experiencing, still conscious, still creating meaning, still dancing the dance of existence. You were part of that dance. You are part of that dance. You will always have been part of that dance. Past, present, and future, all equally real, all equally eternal, all equally you. This is what I learned. This is what gave me peace. This is what I want to share with you. Not as proven scientific fact. I cannot prove most of this, but as the understanding of someone who spent his entire life studying the universe, who thought deeply about time and existence and consciousness, who faced death with curiosity rather than fear. Take from it what resonates with you. Leave what doesn't. But know that death, whatever it is not the tragedy we imagine it to be. It's simply the edge of experience, the edge of the painting. And the painting itself, your life, that exists. That is real. That matters. That is eternal. I'll leave you with one final thought, one final image that came to me in those last days. Imagine the universe as a vast ocean, and each conscious being is a wave. The wave rises up from the ocean. It has form. It has movement. It crashes on the shore, and then it returns to the ocean. Was the wave ever separate from the ocean? No. It was always made of water, always part of the whole. The wave is just a temporary shape the ocean takes. And you are a wave, rising up from the universe, taking form, experiencing, and eventually you'll return to the source. But you were never separate from it. You were always part of it, always connected, always home. That's death. Going home. Not to some place in the sky, but to the fundamental reality from which you emerged. And that reality is not cold or empty. It's the source of everything, of all matter, all energy, all consciousness. It's what you've always been, what you are, what you'll always be. Just sometimes, for a brief moment, in the form of a wave. And that wave, that unique expression, that was your life. And it was beautiful, and it mattered, and it will always have existed. Always. Remember that when you're afraid, when you're facing loss, when you're contemplating your own mortality. Remember the ocean and the wave. Remember that death is not the end of you. It's the return of you to your source, to the infinite, to the eternal, to the mysterious ground of all being. And that, my friends, is not something to fear. It's something to wonder about, to be curious about, maybe even to look forward to, as I did in my final moments. Curious, at peace, ready for the next transformation, whatever that might be.